Dr. Edward, an older gentleman, had an insatiable desire for power and control. He was a brilliant neurosurgeon, renowned for his expertise in performing lobotomies, a procedure where a portion of the brain is removed to treat mental illness. One day, Dr. Edward became obsessed with the idea of creating the perfect servant, someone who would not only serve him in this life, but in the afterlife as well. He scoured the city looking for the perfect candidate, someone with a strong will and a healthy body. Finally, he found a homeless man named Jacob who was living on the streets. Jacob was a strong and healthy and had a will of steel. Dr. Edward lured Jacob into his laboratory, promising him food and shelter in exchange for working as an assistant. Jacob was hesitant at first, but he was desperate for a way out of his current situation. Dr. Edward wasted no time in performing the lobotomy, removing a portion of Jacob's brain that controlled his higher cognitive functions. He then used his expertise to rewire Jacob's brain, programming him to be completely subservient to him. As the days passed, Dr. Edward was thrilled with his new creation. Jacob was the perfect servant, tending to his every need without question. But as time went on, Dr. Edward began to notice something strange about Jacob. He seemed to be communicating with something beyond this world, something that Dr. Edward could not see or hear. One night, Dr. Edward woke up to find Jacob standing next to his bed, staring at him with empty eyes. Dr. Edward tried to speak to him, but Jacob remained silent. Suddenly, Dr. Edward felt a cold hand close around his throat, and he realized with terror that Jacob was not alone. The lobotomy had opened the door to the other side, and now Jacob was possessed by a malevolent spirit that was using him as a vessel. Dr. Edward tried to fight back, but he was no match for the supernatural force that had taken over Jacob's body. In the end, Dr. Edward became the servant, bound to Jacob and the dark entity that now was controlling him. He was trapped in a nightmare of his own making, a victim of his own insatiable desire for power and control. And as the years passed, the legend of Dr. Edward and his haunted laboratory lived on, a warning to those who would dare to play God.